think we're ready to go ahead and start general government meeting. Tony, let's go ahead and start with you, if you don't mind getting us started on the city business plan.
Yes, the proposed 2018 business plan is to complement the strategic plan, and much like last year's business plan, gives us a tactical direction that you want us to achieve to move forward on our strategic goals, which, as you well know, we have 6 of. So I thought probably the easiest thing is just go page by page and see what modifications, amendments you'd like to make, and we'll make those, and then bring back the plan for your ratification at the next meeting of February the 19th.
All right.
So whether it's the text or you want to change any of the performance measures, we'll simply amend whatever you desire and then bring it back.
Is that okay with council? Do you want to go page by page, or do you want to go if any of you have something that you want to review?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm not sure we need to go page by page, but I do have a comment just on one page.
Okay. I found it very thorough, I think, because now this is our second time through doing a strategic plan. It's been very helpful that we've kind of cut through a lot of it. But do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure.
With your questions?
Sure, on page 13, so it's under citizen inquiries. We say we're going to get back to citizens within 48 hours.
Yes.
I would suggest we say 2 working days
Okay.
or something like that rather
That's
than
probably a good
48
idea.
hours. Otherwise, somebody has to have holiday due,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Did you have anything else?
No, that was it. Otherwise, I thought it was a pretty good document.
I thought it was very
I
thorough.
also had a question about
Sure.
that same thing, John. With social media being such a huge part of our community, is it possible that we could add some of that into, do we have like a Facebook page of?
Yes, we make reference to that. It's
Under number
the
2.
public information on page 13, number 2. Social
Oh,
media outreach.
social media outreach, okay.
And Christy's done a good job. We certainly want to build upon what she's done, but she has Twitter account, Facebook account, Instagram account. Like we're
Okay.
doing the Dino Cash issue through Instagram as an example this next week. So she's on the cutting edge.
Yeah, you might want to meet
Very nice.
Christy Gotham sometime when she's in
Yeah.
town. She really does do an excellent job. Yeah, and like us on Facebook. Yeah, Canyon City.
I do, I
Favorite?
am. I just didn't know if we were on all other
All the
social media.
platforms.
Mhm,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. Jim?
Kind of goes with what Ashley said recently in terms of our social media accounts. We need to concentrate on trying to provide some factual information to offset a lot of the misinformation that's there. And there's a fine line between presenting a defensive format versus just presenting a true informational format. But we really need to concentrate on that in terms of trying to offset some of the
Misinformation?
that's out there with factual information, but to try to do it in such a format that we're just saying, hey, here's
Okay.
another viewpoint, I guess you could say.
We'll step that up. We tried not to go tit for tat, but on broader subjects, whether it's 2A, for example, or the proposed stormwater fees, we'll have an actual social media campaign. We'll get that information out. So we'll do a better job maybe answering some of the day-to-day issues.
Yeah, I think, it was just neutral data.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
helpful. That 2A,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
we really tried hard to spend a lot of time on that, on our social media campaign, where we had a lot of that information ready and links to sites that verified that data. And I remember there was a particular stream that was getting a little bit heated, and we just would neutrally, respond
Sure.
with the facts, with no position, but just facts. And I remember someone saying, well,
We can do that.
obviously somebody at City Hall's been doing a lot of homework. So I think that's good when we do a lot of our homework. Jim, do you have anything else that you want to add or say on our business plan for 2018?
No, I mean, there's just there's a lot of information there, and to be honest with you, I've looked through it, but I really haven't studied it, and you just got to assume, I assume that, considering that Tony put it together and the trust element this council has with Tony, you know,
Better look at it again then.
Yeah. Can we table this till the next meeting, please?
I need a couple of beers before I do that.
Well, we certainly have opportunities when we send this out next week to make any adjustments, even at the meeting, and we'll just codify them at that time and then get you out a final draft by the 1st of March. We'll recognize Ryan and Christie had a lot to do with formatting this and collecting all the data, but Ashley's right, this is pretty much built off the framework for last year. There's no radical departures, it's just moving the ball forward in your strategic areas.
Mhm. Go ahead, Jim.
I think the positive is that I'm comfortable in saying that this is where our efforts for the city will be concentrated 99% over the course of the next year. And
Correct.
we may modify some of those things, but for the most part, you know, there's our roadmap in terms of what everybody within the city is going to be concentrating on.
Exactly.
And that's the huge plus.
Yeah, yeah. This also mirrors the 20-point kind of metric performance plan you have for me, so they're embedded in all this. So you got to live up to
I
it.
noticed that.
Can't hide.
Mark, do you have anything that you wanted to add, or questions or
Nope.
clarifications?
Not at this point.
Frank?
No.
Mayor?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right, well, that's excellent.
One
Thank you.
quick thing. Where, under the public safety, where are we at with the MTDs?
Well, they'll actually, we're just waiting the final funding grant from CDOT, but they'll be installed this year, this spring. Just waiting for the money. They've already picked out the prototype, and the bidding is ready. We're just waiting for the funding from CDOT so that we get the whole $200,000.
Hope
Because
you
we
know that
proceed in
sound-
front of them.
That sounds similar to
Yeah.
last year.
No, we weren't ready at this time, but we are now.
That's kind of
We'll keep
similar with
you
the
posted.
wayfinding signs. Wayfinding signs were in last year's strategic plan too, sometimes.
Got it.
What you're saying is you're waiting to get affirmation that they're going to fund it, and then we can go.
Well, they
go
have
forward.
agreed to fund it. We're simply awaiting a contract from them.
Okay.
Because if we expend monies in advance of that contract, we won't get reimbursed. We'll only
Oh.
get reimbursed once that contract is in place, so it's kind of, Adam's had the same experience as CDOT.
Once
They're slow.
everything proper's in place, but see, that's a minimum of 6 months for a contract.
Yeah, they're slow. So that's
You
what
said-
we're waiting for. We got the award back, I think it was August, September, for over $200,000, and here we are in February, and we still haven't got a contract, so. But we have to be patient, because we don't want to walk away from $200,000. So, once we get the money, we'll roll quickly.
Okay.
Because they've spec'd it out, and they've tried different platforms, so they know exactly what they want.
All right.
Okay.
So thank you, Tony, and
Thanks.
thank you,
We'll
Ryan
make
Stevens,
the
as
changes
well.
you recommended today, and any others you want to suggest, either to me personally in the next week or two, or at the next meeting, we'll incorporate them and then get you the final copy by the 1st of March.
Yeah, I do appreciate how well it was done, and I really appreciate the guidance that it gives us throughout the year for us and staff. Let's go ahead and move on to the 2A construction update. Come on up.
Excuse me. I have a question on agenda item number 1.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm Paul Fisher, 299 Savage Loop here in Canyon City, a member of the Fix Our Streets 2A committee. And under infrastructure, on page 8, number 1, continuation of street improvements program. It says it's funded by 2A sales tax and water funds, $4.5 million. How much of that is water and how much of that will be sales tax from 2A?
$3.5 million will be from the 2A funding, and the balance of roughly over $1 million will come from the water fund.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Okay, we'll move on to this 2A street construction for 2017. We have members of our street committee here today, and it was something that we really promised as a street committee, that we were going to take this be really responsible stewards over the money that was going to be spent on this project, something that hasn't been done in the history of Canyon City before. And now that the year is over, we wanted, and also with questions that have arisen from some local constituents, we wanted to make sure that we reviewed that construction process and see how the streets constructions went. Adam, if you wouldn't mind getting us started.
Sure, I guess I'm not sure, we did a more of a formal presentation in December with Kiewit, giving you an update of where we are at. Substantial completion was done before December 31st. We have done inspections and walkthroughs. We've created a punch list. Final payment's been processed. We are still withholding 5% retainage, and we'll be holding that 5% retainage until the punch list corrections are made. And some of those corrections will have to wait for a little bit of warmer weather to do so. But other than that, Tony prepared some responses to some questions there that we can go through those if you want. If you haven't read those in your packet yet or not, or just basically be here to answer any questions that you might have. But overall, staff's position is the project went really well. We really got our value that we expected and beyond. It was unfortunate that we were still so short on water funds because we actually could have spent a little more last year, but because we were behind on the water line issue, we could only throw so many streets into the expanded scope with the limited amount of time that we had. So with some planning that we've got going on now and some increases in the water rates and that sort of stuff, we anticipate being able to do a little better on that and be able to respond a little quicker when and if we can realize the same types of scope extensions. One of the big questions was change order wise. Majority of the change orders that were processed in the project were at the city's request. Again, those were added value items based on what we had in our contingency, ways that we could make the project better using some of the pricing that we already had with the contractor. So that's what I have, unless there's specific questions. And
Go ahead, Jim.
My question is, who or how do you determine for simplistic terms, or at least my viewpoint, how do you determine whether the road meets what I'm going to call a smoothness standard? I mean, as I drive some roads, I notice what I'm going to simply call dips and bumps in a brand-new street. I mean, what's the standard there, or who or how is that evaluated or tested?
we have a smoothest standard. It's based on a certain length of straight edge. And for an urbanized environment, it's not like what you're used to seeing for a smoothest spec on a highway, because we just don't have those kind of speeds. And also we have lots of different surfaces that we're tying into. So when we're not replacing every bit of the curb and gutter or rebuilding driveways that are being tied into and those sorts of things, a lot of those points are fixed. And so will affect the ride on a road that we're just reconstructing rather than highway paving. So I can assure you that everything out there meets the smoothest spec, with the exception of some of the infrared patching that has to be done around some of the manholes and water valves, and that'll be done later on this year.
Okay, but how do you actually evaluate that?
It's a 10-foot straight edge, 16th of an inch. Yeah.
That just basically goes down the road.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask this, but you've already answered it, and that's been done on the westbound lane of East Main.
Yes, unless there's a specific spot that you're concerned with that we can go out and specifically check. I mean, we don't pay for a highway paving, again, that's real expensive paving, and they have lots of money. They'll pay a profiler to actually drive it. We don't have those capabilities, and so unless we see a specific spot we're concerned with to lay a straight edge down on, we don't do that.
Do they test that whole section or not?
No, we don't walk down the street with a 10-foot board all the way down for
Oh, it's not a
5
pull.
miles. No,
It's a,
no. I mean, they make equipment, they make they make trucks that actually will profile a road.
That's what I've seen.
We don't have that capacity.
Jim, do you have a specific spot that you would like to have looked at?
Yeah, but, I mean, I just think, nobody seems to concur with me, it must be me. The westbound lane of East Main has these little bumps and dips in it that, for a brand-new street, seem odd to me. And I'm the only one that seems to notice it.
Yeah, I can't say that I've noticed.
Okay. I mean, I can give you specific, I guess, GPS points or something, but,
Yeah, we can go out there.
Yeah, if you got a specific area, we'd be happy to go check it. Yeah.
All right, Jim, so I'll leave it up to you to coordinate that with Adam. Councilman Hamrick?
Thank you, Adam, for answering the questions from Councilmember Smith. And I had a question or a further clarification on the second page in the large paragraph there, starts in the 2A request for proposals. Down in the middle, we're talking about full depth reclamation, and you say that it's a pretty cost effective, with the implication, I think, being that some of that cost effective was able, the cost savings was able to be applied to other areas to further work or something like that. Is it possible to quantify that? In other words, if we expected a bid of so many dollars for this stretch of street, and because they used full depth reclamation, it was less? Is there some way to quantify that? That's my question.
We didn't do that comparison because we specifically asked for the contractors to provide those innovative ideas. So we didn't do a cost per cost comparison. All we cared about was the amount of scope that they could complete. So if they were able to realize a savings and do that and achieve the same standard that we had, then we were happy. But I would have to ask the contractor specifically if they priced that out.
Or if they have some idea. I mean, you know, it might be nice in these answers to be able to put some number there. It's just a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions from council members or mayor?
Yeah, is there a deadline for the punch list requests that need to be done? Adam?
There's not, but they really want their money. So I'm sure there's something in the contract. I don't specifically recall what it is at this point in time, but when you're holding that much money on them, they're usually pretty eager to get it done.
Okay.
I do have a question. As far as, you know, in the questions, it's asked about what materials are made up in the mixture. And what I've learned is that each path of road was given a certain mixture because of the elements of the road. Were they all tested independently, or were they tested as a batch?
No, everything was tested independently for design and then for compliance when it was constructed.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Every single
effectively-
road was designed individually, independently of the others.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so each of them have a mixture of all of these.
Every single road has a different section.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But every single road, after being custom built, then had to be subject to
Right.
engineering reviews and analysis, and had to meet our specifications.
And what
These
that does is it
national
saves you money,
state
because
standards.
otherwise, like our standard,
Yeah.
you overbuild roads. You either underbuild them or overbuild them, but typically you overbuild them because you want to reduce that risk.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you're spending more money than you typically need to.
okay. The portion of road that Jim's talking about, if it's left alone in 2 years, if he's noticing some dips and, you know, some shake in his vehicle when he drives down the road, what's that gonna look like in 2 years if we're not checking every,
Well, we review it during the warranty period,
okay,
2-year warranty
Two-year
period.
warranty.
And, you know, unless, if it's a ride issue,
Yeah.
That's not necessarily
You may
going to
need to
affect
bring
the
your car
the
in.
integrity of the road. Unless the ride issue is because of a low spot that's holding water, for example, that would be bad and it would affect the lifetime of the
Okay.
road.
It may be cheaper simply to buy Jim new shocks
Yeah,
than rebuild the road.
you could come see us.
So we're gonna, but we'll go out there and check it out.
Actually, I have multiple vehicles with multiple different conditions of shocks.
It's just very
Which have
sensitive.
all been compromised by how horrible our streets have been for the
I mean, I'm
last.
not
They could be
surprised
struts,
that,
too.
yeah, I'm not surprised that he feels variations in the smoothness of
Uh-huh.
the road. That's not a surprise to us.
Okay,
I would expect that,
okay.
As acceptable?
yes.
Yeah, East Main's good.
I haven't noticed anything.
I haven't really noticed
And I
either,
drive
but
that road quite a bit.
If you drive it faster, it smooths it out.
Jim's always been a sensitive guy.
I'm glad there is.
East Main's better than Highway 50.
Jim, you had another
If you run that
question?
road at less than 55, the ride will improve.
Let's get back on subject.
all right, Jim.
Okay, I appreciate all the information that you provided in terms of different municipalities or governments that are using the full depth reclamation. But that at least indicates that other people are utilizing that process. But I guess it's up to us to go check those sites to see if in fact, I mean, how old are some of those? I see one that says it's still strong after 12 years. but
I didn't provide that information, Tony did. I think it was just mainly for your information, because I think there was some questioning, because this is a new process for Canyon City, that people think that we're using some experimental thing, and it's simply not.
Okay.
It's very standard.
John Mosier, do you mind coming up to the microphone and telling us about your experience?
My name's John Mosier, 113 Bob White Loop in Canyon City. Full depth reclamation is something that's been around for a long time. One of the things that I am aware that it does is it recycles asphalt down into the base and adds that aggregate into the base, makes it better. It is an economical way of rebuilding your streets, so you don't have to haul everything out, excavate everything out, and haul new material in. I worked for Boulder County for a number of years, and that was a process that we used there also.
Do you have any experience on the longevity of those roads?
I don't have any specific information on that, but I think it would be comparable to over excavating and bringing in new material.
The experience of most the states we looked at was a 30-year life. Now remember, you still have to maintain these roads over the course of 30 years, so traditional asphalt overlay at some point in the 10th or by the 15th year is common, but they have found these roads to have high integrity, and that's why it's such a popular method, especially with major state highways. They love full depth reclamation. Like you indicated, it saves money, it's sustainable because it recycles existing materials, it reduces fuel costs from trucking and hauling, so it's a win-win for both from an economic and environmental standpoint, so it's very popular. And usually state highway officials are not the most liberal or progressive people, so that speaks volumes that they've embraced this and they're big champions of this methodology.
All right, thank you, John. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add, or?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you for your clarification.
The same standards apply to the material.
Yeah.
It's tested, it's analyzed for strength, and it's tested for that compliance. So regardless of what type of material you use in a road section, it goes through those same processes.
Same geotechnical
Right.
testing. Jim?
You made a comment that kind of took me back. You said something about, I don't even know exactly what it was, but it was kind of like ride quality? Rideability or something, that so long that we didn't necessarily expect it to meet rideability? When we're talking about these bumps and humps and what have you?
I think you made reference to that rideability is different per road.
Right.
Don't have the same experience on every single road. It's
It
always
was in
slightly
reference,
different.
it was in reference to defect, that you said that it may not meet rideability, but
I don't remember saying that.
I don't think so.
I think he said that we would find inconsistencies in it wouldn't surprise you to find some inconsistencies in
Right.
writability
In the
on some of those
writability,
roads.
right. In other words, so our standard on, because we, excuse me, because we didn't have money to replace all the curb and gutter or to install curb and gutter on every road, that profile is different on each street. Where if you were building a new road, you would be a uniform profile.
Right, I understand.
So Whipple is gonna ride different than Fairview because their curb and gutter sections are different.
that. Right.
Okay, well, Adam, I would like to thank you. I had several in-depth questions, and they were thoroughly answered. I appreciated all of the geotechnical work in here. I can't say that I understood all of it, but I appreciate you providing all that information and study for us to see, and I'm assuming it's available to the public as well. Is that?
Some of it is, I had to pull a sample because we don't have final deliverables yet. Just finishing December 31st, we're still collecting those from the contractor, but every bit of this will be available for public view, all the geotech reporting, the as-built drawings and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, with the second year going soon, you know, we're going to do hopefully awards in March. We plan on, talked to Tony about this already, we plan on doing some public outreach, letting kind of people know how it went last year, what our expectations for this year are, what may be different, what might be the same, some of that sort of stuff, just to kind of keep everybody out there in the public aware of what's happening.
Okay, so speaking of comparisons to last year and this year, based on your lessons learned from 2017, did you make any changes to the 2018 bid or requirements?
We did make a few changes, minor stuff, but we clarified some of the expectations that we have going forward, some of which surprised Kiewit, some of which surprised us that Kiewit added in value, but we liked, and so we want to make sure it's included in the bid so that we get fair bids. For example, we had no requirement for a website and a hotline for the project. Kiewit provided that as part of their value-added package, so we liked that and it worked well. So we are asking all the bidders to bid the same on that this year, to include it in their price. There was some issue with interpretation of our ADA ramp specifications on Kiewit's end. It cost them some money because they had not planned on some stuff they planned on, but they, in good faith, went through that and did it like they were supposed to anyway, without any claims. So there's some of those things that we clarified because, you know, but they're minor stuff, as far as I know. We're going to do a little better. We thought we did okay last year, but we've heard back on some of the locations that we didn't communicate as well, traffic zone-wise. Some places we saturated really well and did really good on, and then others we kind of fell off on. So we'll work on improving that this next year. So.
I noticed in the bid for 2017, it said that any change orders would have to go to City Council. However, we never saw those change orders. Is that something that will change has changed in the new bid?
Well, I guess that might be a matter of semantics. You see the change orders because you approve all the pay requests. So it would not be typical for City Council to manage the project by committee.
I'm not saying I wanted to see every single one of those.
But you see those every time you do a pay request authorization. And if you want us, when we do a pay request, if you want us to show you all that detail in the packet, we'll be happy to.
I think, as I recall, the expenditures, those are bulked under one payment. Those are not specific to change orders.
No, it's broke out in each.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very specific.
On the sheet that we're given?
It is. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. You may not see that. And so if you guys want more detail, we can easily.
We can provide that in our weekly meetings, that level of detail, and if you want to bring it up at a council meeting, that's your prerogative, but we can provide you that at the weekly level.
No, I'm talking about the payment.
I mean, I think we had a total of 4 this year, so that's not significant given the scope of this project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the city, again, as Adam alluded to, the city initiated 72% of all the change orders, so we were the driving force behind most of them.
Well, and another benefit to the way we did it last year was once we had our preferred bidder identified, then we negotiated a final scope before we even signed the contract. So a lot of the pricing and things that we added and things that we deducted were all worked out before we even had a contract in hand. So there was a question, for example, about the water line that we reduced. Well, that didn't show up in a change order because we had already negotiated that out of the contract in the beginning to increase the scope. So that's why you don't see that, because we had the benefit of working that out beforehand and instead of arguing about it later.
When does the 2018, I know that the bid is out already, when is that closed, when it will?
The 27th is of February is the pre-proposal meeting, and I can't remember which date in March they're due. And then I think it's the second council meeting in March that we hope to award. So it's probably, I don't remember the dates, but
Early March.
it's pretty much the exact same schedule we had last year.
Yeah.
March 19th.
One other thing that, in the discussion, talking about change orders, mentioned that we initiated 70-some%. So next year when you prepare a package for us, could you show us which change orders are initiated by the city?
Sure.
And which were initiated by the
Well,
the Kiewit?
what we'll do is just provide you a copy of the change order that has all the costs in there with the justification and everything, so you'll see exactly
Yeah.
what's going on. That's no problem.
It's nice to
And
have those
I can provide
answers.
you that.
Yeah.
Is there anyone from the audience that would like to address City Council?
Paul Fisher again. I want to state, first of all, I'm certainly not an expert regarding street reconstruction, but I am an expert with regard to water treatment and water distribution, mainline installations, and those types of things. It's my understanding that you did a design build last year, and my concern is that utilizing a design build for replacement of water mains and streets, the city is spending more money than necessary to accomplish what you need to do with the water lines. I would like to see the city either have your engineering department do the design or hire a engineering firm to design water main replacement and then put it out to a traditional bid where everybody bids on the water line replacement. When you have a contractor, a general contractor, having a subcontractor doing water main installation, you're adding a minimum of 10%, maybe 15 to 20% to the cost of the water mains to get them installed in the ground. So it may be too late for this year, but going forward, I'd like to see that accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else from the audience?
Hi, I'm Sandy Atencio, and my family owns Atencio Glass, and I own Jumpstart Javas on East Main and downtown. I guess I just wanted to reiterate what I stated last month when I was here. I saw business owners and businesses all along East Main suffered horribly, mostly because due to lack of communication. We didn't know from one day to the next if we needed to have employees working or not, or if we should even be open or not. It was always it was a crapshoot, okay? Are we open today or not? Can we take care of our customers today or not? That is so discouraging to business owners. I thought True Value might even go out of business. My grandson worked there, he got laid off. They had no business, people couldn't even get to them. I talked to people who typically would go to True Value, said that they stopped because they couldn't get to them. So I'd like to say, if Kiewit or whoever else, the contractor is selected, I'm happy with East Main. I drive it 3 times a day, both ways. And Jim, I really haven't noticed anything. I haven't. So of course I drive a new Murano, so I don't know. Maybe it handles it better. But as I expressed to Adam, I'm happy with what they did, the end result. But getting to that end result was horrific. And I'm surprised some business owners are still in business. I really don't think that that's necessary. If they're going to be working a mile away from my business, it doesn't make sense to me to block off 2 or 3 mile stretch of road. I don't see the point in that. You know, so, and communication. If somebody would just let me know, I told him, I said, just give me 24 hours notice. At the very least, I need 24 hours notice because my employees need to work. They have families to take care of. They have bills to pay. I can absorb it as the business owner, but I can't afford to pay them when I don't need them to work. That's not fair to them. So seriously, gang, it's not fair to this community. We are all vested in this community, and it's not fair.
Thank you for your
So-
feedback. We really appreciate it. We thank you for your feedback and really appreciate it.
Well, in the future, if we
and
can just
hear
maybe
your
have
voice.
some communication ahead of time, what section is going to be worked on, for how long, that would be good information.
Okay, that's duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mark?
Adam, is there any way, I mean, I know that there was only a couple of instances in a project of this size. It's very small, but as small business people, it's very important to their world. Is there any way that we can be a little more proactive or maybe set that up when we do assign somebody?
Absolutely. Like
Some-
I
just
said,
some more attention.
We did really well. Some parts
Except
of the
for a
project.
few
and-
isolated cases, but
Right.
we're talking about, right now, 3 people's livelihoods that we've heard about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a small businessman. And I know if somebody shuts me down unexpectedly, that it can really make a difference whether I pay my bills at the end of the month or pay my help. So, I mean, it's very important, even if it happens once or twice, that's really too much. Because there's 1 or 2 businesses, small businesses, that are affected by this in a negative way.
No,
So if there's any
yeah.
way we could try to
bet.
just put every effort we can, and I know we're gonna miss things, and Q is gonna, or whoever does it's gonna miss things because we're all human. But just kind of put it up forward and front, please.
Absolutely, yep,
Thank you.
will do.
Awesome. All right, anyone else from the audience?
Hi, I'm John Airy, owner of ANS Construction. Appreciate your having this meeting to discuss this. I was also part of the, like Paul Fisher and several of you, I was also part of the committee that went out and asked the taxpayers to approve this tax. And also, when we went out and asked them to approve this tax, we said we would account for how it happened. And I think for the city and staff to sit up here and say everything went perfect, everything was great, a couple change orders that we asked for is a gross misrepresentation of the truth. The road certainly got paved, but the details of what happened in our city staff was not even involved in the project. We had consultants reporting in. I don't know how often Adam can answer to that, but I had a conversation with our city engineer halfway through the project and said, how's it going? He said, well, I don't know. I'm busy taking care of all the stuff I got to take care of. That's a design build contract. We hire all that out, which is an accurate statement. But point being, I take exception to some of the answers. I guess, run down through the list. I agree with you on East Main. I think what is unfortunate, and Adam was trying to explain it, is we don't have a smooth in the spec. It's city streets. We didn't replace curb and gutter, so we did not get a control line. We didn't get something to pave to that can make it nice and smooth. So the contractor was forced to warp to all these different driveways and grade changes, which I think is unfortunate as taxpayers. I can't tell you how many people I've had approach me saying, hey, you campaigned for this tax, and they go out there and they fix the road, but it's as rough now as it was when they started. And I think that as staff or council, I think it would be of merit to analyze the streets like East Main and figure out if there's a way we can make it smoother when we do it, which curb and gutter would have fixed that problem, not to mention you didn't control the drainage. The reason East Main failed, one of the reasons East Main failed is because the drainage wasn't controlled for the last 20 years, and we just went out there and put $1 million worth of asphalt on it and didn't control the drainage. But neither here nor there. I see your point, and what Adam was trying to explain to you, I think, was the smoothness spec versus just a straight edge spec. And the way this job was built, it was an old school 10-foot straight edge. So if the whole road's got a little oscillating and roughness to it, there's no spec for that. But along with Paul Fisher, I take issue with the way the city has designed the project. I think we've wasted a horrendous amount of money with this design-build concept. I think Paul hit the nail right on the head. It's plain Jane street construction. We're not sending anybody to the moon. We don't need to pay for this kind of engineering. What I find somewhat insulting is when we say we've done a special design for every single street. That is a misrepresentation of the truth. Almost every single street was constructed the exact same way. How hard is it to design, pulverize, and 5 inches asphalt? Pulverize and 6 inches asphalt or 9 inches asphalt. It's also insulting if you say that the recycled material is tested for the same qualities as new imported materials as what the city standard spec is. That's absolutely not true. A brand new, completely virgin aggregate product is what the city spec'd, or equal or better. And then you recycle it, you absolutely are not testing for the same components. So it's deeper than, yeah, everything went great.
Well, I don't think anyone said everything was excellent and perfect. We're recognizing that there's lessons to be learned and changes to be made, but overall, the streets were good and adequate. I would have to say that Mariposa was not rougher.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I would absolutely agree with you.
It was actually an improvement when they took out the pavement and it was just dirt.
Yeah. So in the questions and answers, I don't know who submitted the questions, but second page of them, they asked what was the bore on East Main that was not completed. The answer did not answer that question.
Well, we can clarify that answer right now.
I would ask if Adam or the staff knows what that answer is.
I answered it actually just today. That was negotiated before we signed the contract. We removed that from the cost, from their guaranteed maximum price.
And it's because it was scoped, right, with the camera?
It was scoped, no, it was scope, we're talking about the scope of work.
Okay.
That water line work couldn't be done. We couldn't afford it. So we removed it from the scope of work before we signed the contract.
So how many dollars was negotiated out of the bid when you done that?
I don't remember the total. I think it was around
I think it's pretty darn important that we know what the total is.
It is written in here.
Well, the numbers are available.
It was in the contract documents when we bid the project. There was a piece of paper called, I think it was Schedule D, because that was at the back.
Right.
We were told in writing, you cannot modify that in any way, shape, or form. Kiewit absolutely modified it completely, and we were told we had to itemize every single item, which we did on the Schedule D form.
And so did
Kiewit. You look at Kiewit's, it's absolutely not itemized. It's totaled.
Settle.
It's totaled in a bulk form, so it doesn't identify the dollar amount that comes out.
I would suggest to the council, this is more appropriate for a bidder's protest than a council discussion, given this was one of the bidders. So we'd be glad to answer his questions and provide you the answers, but this is probably not the appropriate forum.
Tony, I'm not protesting anything. I'm
Well,
one of the guys that went out and asked for the tax to get approved.
It sounds that way, sir.
Yeah.
Just like you're saying Main Street is as bad as it was before. That's
drainage.
totally logical, and you said it. You said Main Street is as bad as it was before. How dare you say that? It's not.
The drainage is the exact same as it was.
You did not mention drainage. You said the road is as bad as it was as it is now. That's what you said.
I think you said drainage.
Well, I'm curious, if you're going to reduce a contract and council wants to know.
The contract wasn't reduced. It was negotiated prior to signing the contract.
So there would have been a dollar
Which is,
amount.
there's a process in the RFP to do that.
I agree.
And there is a dollar value to that. I'm sorry I don't have it memorized. But if you want that information, we'll get it for you.
We will
We've given it
provide
to
you
you
the-
before because we brought to you the negotiated contract for approval.
It was, and it was approved by city council.
when we did this, we assured the public that there would be total openness in this. I think that if the gentleman has specific questions, that he could put them down and come up with the answers for it, because that's being totally open. But we have to know, rather than discussing the whole job, what do you see and what questions do you need? And we are obligated, and we obligated ourselves to have total openness. So if you want to put your questions together and stuff, then I'm sure that staff can get your questions answered for you, rather than just having everything, every little detail right here in the meeting we're having. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Total transparency.
Absolutely.
And I think that if you bring the questions in, that it's our responsibility and what we said we would do to have total transparency, and we need to give you the answers to your questions. But please bring us a list of questions, get with Adam. If we need to make it public, then fine. If we don't, if there's questions that you have that can be answered, then please get a list together and get them to Adam, or whoever would take care of this. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I chose to speak tonight really from the same point of view as Paul Fisher has said. I think it's important that City Council understand what this bid process is costing the taxpayers. I'm not arguing that the project that Kiewit did has any catastrophic flaws. I'm just saying that the process of the design-build concept is not what we sold the taxpayers when we asked for this tax.
Well, and there's two views, because we've also heard from other folks saying that the design build was a risk to take, but and we felt that in this case it actually turned out to be pretty good for us in 2017.
Yeah.
And us meaning the taxpayers of Canyon City.
At the end of the day, the winning bid was $1.4 million less than the engineer's budget estimate, and $1.4 million lower than your proposal. So I don't see how the public was not served by that process. We gained an additional 25,000 square yards of product because of that process. So I'm a little confused how somehow it wasn't good for the taxpayer.
Ms. Smith?
Well, Tony, to your point, what did we negotiate out of that base bid to start off with? 'Cause
Well, I
you gotta
don't know if
take
this
that
is
out
the
of
right
1.4.
venue for talking about the bidding process. for
No, I
next year.
understand, but I'm just saying that you can't say that if you don't understand the numbers that you're talking
You're
about.
exactly right, John Paul. So
And that's why we have staff.
the
We can't
reductions we're
be
talking
experts.
about are not within the $1.4 million of savings. That was in the guaranteed maximum price before we negotiated. So you're right, you need to understand the numbers before you make comment on them.
But we'll be happy to answer all your questions and make it public available. We have nothing to.
So we
not
answered, I
disclose.
felt like we answered quite a few of the questions with public. That's why we're having this meeting for transparency. We've asked for more questions for you to
Well, actually,
get
maybe I
answers
was
for.
misguided. I was contacted by, it doesn't matter who. I thought this was going to be a point of discussion on how you were going to propose the next contract out. There was going to be discussion on the design-build concept. But
Well,
I think that's not.
that bid for 2018 is already out.
Yes.
So there's no discussion on for 2018. We could and probably should have open conversations for 2019. I don't know if today's the right time for that, but we're,
All right.
Ms. Smith?
but
Mr.
also the pre-proposal, the pre-bid meeting is a time to talk about if you want changes to bid in 2018. That's when we need to bring up these questions for the bidding process in front of all the other potential bidders to be fair to them.
Let me clarify at least what I think. The 2018 bid has not been finalized by council, so we still have flexibility. But my request would be, I'm not going to try to convince anybody that I am capable of analyzing the whole project as you or another contractor could do. But we have our staff providing us with their perspective of what's happened, and fortunately or unfortunately or realistically, that's the only viewpoint we've got from a factual standpoint. If you can provide factual information that contradicts or provides another viewpoint, I think that would be beneficial to council, and I think that this council would look at it in terms of, here's known flaws in the process, and if, in my opinion, if we have to put the 2018 bid on hold, I don't have a problem with that. It's not that we have to spend that money in 2018, from my personal perspective. It's more important to get the entire process correct and to make for sure that in 10, 15 years, we still have a quality street. So if you can provide us with factual information about flaws or defects that have happened, I think that's a good beginning point for some discussion.
All right, well, I appreciate your comments, your time. Adam, is there, on the punch list, is that going to be public knowledge of what you've put out for a punch list?
It can be, absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
All right, thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kiewit, would you like to come and address council?
John, if you could go ahead and just fill out a records request for that. Right, Adam?
Yeah.
John? Yeah. Thank you.
Adam, do you have anything to wrap this conversation up?
No, I probably shouldn't say anything.
I'd just like to say one thing. It's not our opinion. All the construction was independently validated by independent engineering firms that met our standards, state standards, and national standards. That's what's important, not our opinion.
Did we hire those or did Kiewit?
Kiewit hired those.
Yeah.
And
One of which is our
just
contractor at the
understand,
same time.
and don't take this wrong,
Yeah.
but there are a number of documented cases where a company hired another company to document their work, and I'm not saying that that happened, but in the whole process, if the people that were evaluating the streets were being paid for by the city instead of the contractor, I think that presents a different light on the situation.
Yeah, but these are state certified engineers. Do you think they're going to jeopardize their reputation and their livelihood by cutting corners and not validating the truth? I mean, that raises a real serious aspersions on contractors if we think that's the case.
Well,
All I'm telling
No.
you is
So that-
how it appears.
Their quality control
Yeah.
tester is the city's quality control tester as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
first
all
of all.
I'm
It's the same.
saying
Highly
is,
reputable.
Second of all, one of their testers is the same tester that A&S uses. See, we want to talk about transparency.
Yeah.
He didn't mention that he is a competitor. He mentioned that it was on the streets committee. He was a competitor last year. He's a competitor this year. Transparency as far as line items.
Dollars spent and where they were spent?
We don't have, by technicality, A&S was disqualified last year because they never provided escrow documents that gave us the detail on what their prices were based on. So I can't even do a dollar-for-dollar comparison between Kiewit and A&S because A&S never provided the documentation that was required with the RFP. So if we want to talk about transparency, this could get really ugly, and we're in the middle of a bid.
I realize that. I'm just telling you from a public perspective. When you have the validating, inspecting firm working for the contractor, that looks different than that validating firm working for the city. That's all I'm saying.
They do work for the city.
But they do.
You don't, yeah, see,
Well, I
So,
think we're
yeah.
digressing on this
Yeah.
conversation. The
No, we're
point of having our meeting today was to get some answers to some important questions that were brought up, some valid questions that were brought up. I think we were able to be provided with a number of answers and documentation for it.
Jim is right. If there's the appearance that something is not right as far as how the testing is being done, then we should review that and we can address that. That is not an
mean,
issue. I don't take issue with that at all.
It's not going to change cost. I think it's just a perspective.
No, it will change the cost.
Well,
Yeah.
if
It will
does,
change the cost.
It's
A lot of
probably
the
worth
things
it.
that we talked about tonight, only, if those are important things to city council and the taxpayers, it will only raise the price. I guarantee it. If you want to smooth this spec, if you want the road smoother, it will cost more money. If you want the curb and gutter installed, as Mr. Airy explained, we know that costs more money. That's why we didn't do it.
Right, I know.
And,
So, I mean,
and
there's-
money cannot be spent
There
on
are cost
curb and
implications
gutters.
to all of this. we have to decide at what level of value we are happy with. Because you do get what you pay for.
Paul Fisher, if you can keep your comments brief, we're going to move on. But
I just want to make one comment with regarding what Jim Messner said, and that is, I agree with you, Jim. If I, and this is from personal experience, if I hired a third-party independent inspector when I sandblasted and painted water tanks, I got a job that would last 17 to 20 years. If I allowed the contractor to hire the inspector, the job might last 10 to 12 years. And you're spending the exact same amount of money. Your only other out-of-pocket dollars are for your inspector. And John Mosier pointed out that it will cost more money if you hire, the city hires the inspector, the engineering firm to do the testing, because the way we wrote the question, the ballot question, the money can only be spent for reconstruction of streets. You'll probably have to take it out of your general fund to hire the testing and inspection company.
No,
so, but I agree with you. Perception, a lot of times, even though it may not be valid, it sure does look valid in the eyes of the beholder. Yeah. Thank you.
That would not be a separate and cost from the 2A project. It would be part of the 2A costs. If you want to ensure that degree of independence, we can do that. We can hire them directly.
I think it's a council
That's fine.
decision, but I think just from a perspective, we have an obligation to make for sure to everybody that it was done right, and I think it gets clouded.
Well,
when,
if
and
there's
this
a
is nothing against
consensus,
Kia.
we need to know that because this will impact the scope of the RFP. So if we need to take that piece out and indicate that the city will independently pay for the engineering review, we can do that. But it is a cost. It is a cost that can be incurred by 2A because it's part of the road construction process.
I think we'll
you
need to
have to
find
do
out.
Engineering validation.
I think I'd want to find out what that cost would be before I made a
I
decision.
would agree with Ashley. Find out what the dollar amount is
Okay.
to take it and make it solely in the city's interest for the inspection. And a dollar amount is very important. I mean, if it's $50,000, it might be worth it. If it's $250,000, it won't be worth it, I don't think.
Not that much.
All right, so let's wrap up the conversation on 2A streets. I would like to say in finalization, I have heard from several sources, valid sources, that the streets are good. We are really happy with our streets overall, and we appreciate the sales tax being passed so that we can rebuild our streets, and are looking forward to 2018 with having more miles performed on the behalf of Canyon City. I hope you realize that this conversation is to be open and constructive and to learn, and it sounds like maybe we'll be able to make some tweaks to it. If there's bidding questions that need to be done, that needs to take place at February 27th at the pre-bid proposal meeting in front of all the other bidders. Is there anything else before we move on to the next subject? Okay, let's go straight into sidewalks, safe routes to school. Adam?
Yep, so Tony asked me to put this together because there was some questions that were coming up that we've answered before regarding some of our design work on crosswalks downtown. And so we thought it would be a good idea to revisit that a little bit and explain why we're doing what we're doing there. So the plan with the Safe Routes to School project at the middle school is very similar to what we did downtown as far as the bump outs or curb extensions, they're sometimes called. And that design came from a study and work we did with the safety committee that we had back before we applied for the grant to do the work. That safety committee met with the PTO at the middle school, had some discussions with some of the business owners across the street about parking and so forth. And so that's where, that's where the design came from back in around the 2012 time. It's taken quite a while to get through that process and then design it and then have it approved by CDOT. So where we're at in the construction phase of it is it's going through environmental clearance now with CDOT. Once that's complete, then we should get our IGA and hope to do this during the summer while school is out this year. And then the work that's related to the sidewalks and the curb and the parking and that sort of thing, it will be a separate contract through the CDOT rules, and then the asphalt will be done hopefully in conjunction with the 2A project. So the main concerns that came out of that safety study that we did back in 2012, number one was speeding. There was concern about safety of for the children that were crossing the street. We looked at, so speeding was number one issue. Second issue was the visibility of the students. People complained that they couldn't see the kids standing on the corners, waiting to cross the street. And then same problem we've had downtown with our wide streets, the crossing distances. So once they were able to cross, the distance they had to cross was quite a ways, and didn't give them much time to get there before another motorist was on the street. So those were the order of issues that we had. We can't install stop signs for speed control. Every traffic control device that we install has to be based on the warrants within the manual on uniform traffic control devices. So we have to do a warrant study for those sorts of things, and we did warrant studies at the intersections of 13th and 12th Street and didn't meet the condition for multi-way stops. So the next thing we looked at was traffic calming, and the curb extensions served that purpose for traffic calming. So that takes care of the number one issue of speeding. That addresses that. Second thing that the extensions do is they make those pedestrians more visible. As you've hopefully noticed downtown, you can see the people standing out on, next to the street waiting to cross instead of hidden behind tree or parked vehicles or that sort of stuff. So it brought those pedestrians out where the motorists could see them. And then finally, by putting the curb extensions in, it cuts the crossing distance by quite a bit that they have to cross. They're only getting across 2 lanes of traffic instead of 4 lanes. There's always the concern that people can't turn on the radiuses. We've modeled the radiuses. We included some templates in the packet for you. We've physically driven the radiuses. We've taken people on rides around the radiuses in our extended cab trucks and shown them that if you can make the turn without hitting the curb or driving over the curb in some of the bigger vehicles. You have to be very purposeful in your movements, and again, that's part of the traffic calming effect of it, is that you can't go around the corner as fast as you normally do on other corners, and that's on purpose. We want you to be very cognizant of where you're at in the lane, how slowly you're turning, who's on the corner when you're turning, and that sort of stuff. There are 8 truck aprons built under the corners, so we know bigger trucks need to cut those corners, and that's okay if they do. It's designed that way. We don't want to flatten the curb. There's been talk about that of, well, you could round the curb off and that sort of stuff. Well, then you're eliminating the refuge effect that the stand-up curb has for the pedestrian. The intent is to protect the pedestrian. So if you make it easier for someone to drive over the curb, they're going to drive over the curb. You want them to avoid doing that. So those design elements, again, those design elements are there specifically for those reasons, and if you take out any of those design elements, you're basically negating the effects that we're trying for. A prime example of this, it was the new roundabout at Walmart. The truck apron that was designed and built was completely politically driven. There was concern based on the performance of our other 2 roundabouts and how that truck apron would affect or does affect trucks. So the result was, because CDOT was, they wanted to be helpful, so they flattened that truck apron out, and the result we have now is people driving straight through the circle. There's no traffic calming effect, especially for southbound traffic. With the curb flat, they just drive right through, and so we've lost that speed effect in the roundabout. So that's an example of making a modification because someone who's not driving properly or doesn't like the effect of what it does to them when they drive through the traffic device, modifying that for them. So hopefully that answers any concerns that we may have as far as what we're doing down there. We're not doing any decorative type stuff like we did downtown with these curb extensions. That's not the intent of this project. That was a secondary component of the downtown stuff. I just talked to Ms. Atencio just now, and she has her little flower corner out there that she takes care of well and stuff. Well, in this project, we'd be happy to help her extend irrigation out to that corner so that she can continue to maintain that the way she does. That looks so nice. So we will work with the property owners on each of those individual corners on how that may look, since they're responsible for the landscaping in those locations.
Adam,
Mark?
can I ask you a question? Is this concept that you're looking at the junior high with regards to cars turning and all this other stuff, is it the same concept that was looked at with the bump outs down Main Street?
Yes.
Okay, then that concept isn't going to work, all right? I can take you down there anytime. If you get a large vehicle wanting to turn off the side streets, there's no way they'll make that turn properly without coming out.
I'll take you for a ride.
They just can't do it.
I'll take you for a ride.
I'll take you
for a ride.
I'll take you and show you.
No, I'm taking you for a ride.
And I'll take you, and I'll take you and show you
All right.
where they're doing it every day.
Well, I understand that people are running into the curb.
Well,
I
and here's the
understand
other
that.
thing. Here's the other thing with regard to this.
Uh-huh.
You know, I'm not in favor of the bump outs. I'll say it so right now.
I know.
You know, and going back with your design, where the stop signs are going to be,
Uh-huh.
in order for a vehicle to know if traffic is coming, they have to go into the intersection, just like they do downtown. And when you go into the they do it.
Yeah.
And I do it. I do it. When they go into the intersection, now they're in the crosswalk.
Well, again, it's by design. So,
But here's the hazard that creates.
Okay.
You go into the crosswalk.
uh-huh.
Then if somebody's coming and wants to cross the street, guess what? He can't back up because somebody's behind him. So consequently, that pedestrian has to go around the vehicle. That's not a safety thing, okay? And it happens all the time with pedestrians down on Main Street.
The driver can't pull into the crosswalk if there's a pedestrian waiting.
I'm not talking about this. They will stop back there, and then they may pull forward, and all of a sudden, here comes somebody that wants to cross the street.
That's a fast walker.
It happens every day.
Okay.
Okay? So it creates a safety hazard,
Okay.
all right?
I think the trade-off is more beneficial.
Well, and then we talk about speed. Ain't nobody slow down on Main Street where we have the bump outs. The only time you'll see them slow down is if somebody starts backing up.
Well, we have the data to show that.
So they say they don't slow down. That's not going to slow them down, you know, putting it out like that.
Adam, do you say you have data?
Yeah, this is a tried and tested method for traffic calming.
Mark, you had some comments?
I think what we're talking about here, if I'm reading Adam right, is it's an intentional inconvenience so people do not go quickly and they take their time. I think it's
understand what we're talking
intentional. It's
about.
an intentional
I
inconvenience.
understand what we're talking about, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, and I wasn't addressing that at you. This was an open statement, my feelings, my opinion. But like I said, it makes people slow down, it makes them uncomfortable so that there is not speed involved and people are actually going to slow down and stop and do it. I mean, I understand the concept. Is it the general idea of everybody that's involved? I don't know that they will ever buy it or that they will ever approve of it. But it's like I said, it's an intentional discomfort so that people are aware and do pay attention. Personal opinion.
Right.
Can I mention something?
Yeah, right, let's finish. We're going to have city council comments, and then we'll open up to the public.
I don't have a problem with this design. I personally, I think it would be great. I was a crosswalk at the middle school, a crossing guard at the middle school for 2 years, and people drive down that road at a ridiculous pace. And for me to even come out with my sign, people would just drive right past me. My problem that I have with it, however, is that this data is 6 years old. Can we do a current study at a cost-effective rate?
We could do another count if you'd like. I mean, it wouldn't take much to do that.
Only because in 6 years, we've grown considerably in the area of students.
Actually, we've been losing students in the area, so. I
Okay.
mean, intuitively,
Yeah,
I could tell you
there
that
is
the
less
traffic
students.
hasn't increased, but it's
Okay.
not that big of a deal to do a
It's
count.
not?
So
Okay.
we can do that.
I would feel
Yeah.
more satisfied ruling out the fact that
Sure.
a four-way stop might be acceptable. I
Sure.
think that would be ideal for this situation if it can happen. And
Okay.
that's my only concern.
Yeah, that's not an issue. It'd be a good comparison because we like to do the test after the devices are installed anyway, so that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
So
John?
I'd like to follow up on the data question. What data do we have?
So it's volume counts, peak hours, turning movements, and speed.
And speed?
Yeah.
So we have that. So those are the basics for a traffic study?
And direction, yeah.
And
Yes.
direction?
Yeah.
And so we have that data?
Mhm.
What does it take to do a average speed limit out of that data traffic study?
Well, we have that existing data already.
So we have the
that's
data.
available. Yeah, I could call you that tomorrow.
So where I'm headed with this particular question is, in my view, it seems like our 25-mile-an-hour speed limit may be too fast in the area where we have the bump outs. And the question is, do we have the data right now to support a lower speed limit?
No.
That's my
I would say
question.
absolutely not, because you
Well,
have.
then I don't
you have data
understand
that
what we have.
Yeah, you have data that supports a speeding issue. So, again, it's going to indicate a higher 85th percentile probably, which means raising the speed limit.
Well, but do we have the data
We have the data from 2012.
from 2012?
Yeah.
But we don't have the current data based on the current configuration.
Are you talking
Yes,
about
based on the
downtown?
current configuration,
Yes,
we
I-
do have that data.
You have downtown data
Yeah.
with the new bump outs, the speeds.
But it's not current, and that's all he's pointing.
No, we've recounted downtown since 2012. We did this safety study in 2012. And so, she was asking for, a new count, new data now before we build the project, and that's not a problem.
So in that, can you configure?
All right, Jim?
I just have a statement for council. I must have problems with my vehicles because I cannot make those turns in my vehicle without creeping out. And there's two things that happen with me. I may be able to technically and physically be able to make the turn, but the perception is that I can't make the turn. So if there's a car in that other lane, I try to get that car out of the way because I know I'm going to infringe upon that other lane. That may be my driving habits, but that's the situation with my full-size pickup. And my extended cab pickup, it's not going to happen.
Just to bounce off that, on our side streets downtown, we do not have middle lane markers, do we?
No.
I think that's our problem, is when people pull up to those crosswalks and the stop signs, they're crowding the other lane.
No, they're
And
not.
so when you go to turn, there's not enough room.
And then,
Well, this is getting a little bit off topic, but Mayor, do you have any comments about the bump
It's my
outs?
impression that this is all or none. If we try to
Yes.
do any modifications, we don't get it.
Right.
So I don't know why we're having this discussion.
because we
Because
we
have to
do
decide
have
if
the
it's all or
option.
none.
We
And
do have
I'm-
the option to modify it. We do not
Did
have to
you?
accept this plan.
Well, he said we don't, because I don't
then
like
he's
the curve.
wrong.
I drive that from my office, I don't know how many times a day. I don't like that stand-up curve. I'm a decent driver, and I have a four-door pickup, and my concern is I'm gonna bust my tire on that stand-up curve. I like the curbs I understand the one in Walmart. I can see that. But I like the curves that we have in the other ones where it's kind of we used to call it a California curve. It kind of laid back a little bit, but it was there. But the straight stand-up curve, I'm conscious of breaking one of those and ripping up my tire. And I drive it many times a day.
How many times have you ripped your tire on it?
I've ripped it, I've hit it.
But how many times have it damaged your tire?
Well, I don't know. I think I've got a crease in it now. I've never had a flat, but that's not the point. The point is you're so doggone cautious that just like Jim, I wait until traffic gets by to get around it.
Yeah, when you, but
And then
that's, I'm saying goal achieved.
And then when I'm going
Yeah.
to work, I'm sitting on Main Street trying to take a left turn. If there's somebody sitting there, I'll probably wait till they're gone because I'm concerned that I can get it in there. You're right, I can.
Well,
But
a left turn, you should
never.
most certainly should be able to make
Yeah.
a left turn.
Well,
It's the
but
right, it's the
again,
right
I
turn is the
think-
tight
I
radius.
think it looks to me as a driver, as a stand-up curve, as a hazard. And when we can kid about it, some of us riders, I'm gonna hit a sidewall and they're about $500 tires. Not gonna be happy. I think if we had a different, and a non-stand-up curve of some kind would be better.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
I'm not sure I understand. This project is not going to happen in 2018, correct?
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, that's
the plan.
That's why,
For summer.
yeah.
It was delayed from last summer.
So both the Safe Route School sidewalks and the street construction on 12th Street from Highway 50 to Macon were scheduled for 2018.
Right.
Well, with all the complaints this council gets about the intersections downtown, whether they're right or wrong, and whether they technically meet the engineering standards for making a right-hand turn in a pedestrian vehicle or passenger vehicle, I think it would be ludicrous for this council to approve that same design that we know doesn't work on 12th Street.
I have a question, Adam. Who did approve this project? Did it come to a city council before us, and was it approved, or was this just designed and?
I mean, the grant application would have been approved by a previous council,
I
but
think you brought it to the old council, it seems like.
And who were on, and how many people were on this committee that helped decide that this was the most ideal?
but we have custom discussed this design feature since Fifth Street was done, and I think that was when we built our first intersection. I think we actually constructed Fifth and Main in 2012.
I think there's been the comments that the corners at 12th and Main would be similar to the corners downtown, but they would be different. And what I'm understanding now is that the fundamental physical design is the same, we just don't have the planners.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of this council has some concern because when we ran for election 2 years ago, the bump outs were a huge issue for our constituents. I think it seems to have tempered the last year or so, but there was a time I thought maybe our necks would have been lobbed off.
I'm not running again, doesn't matter.
Actually, just very quickly, I
Okay.
wanted to say one thing. During peak hours at 12th and Main, who are your main drivers? Who mainly is going through that intersection? It's not people our age.
High school students.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Inexperienced high school students. It's, to me, it's dangerous, and it's accidents waiting to happen. We've actually witnessed 2 kids get bumped by cars down there. I saw one 6-year-old boy scared out of his wits by a truck that thought he had the right-of-way because he was going on Main Street, and this child was crossing in the crosswalk. It really upset me.
So you're
But I'm
validating
down there,
that
I
some-
witness it every day.
So you're
I don't think
validating that some safety measures need to be
That
taken.
particular theory or that situation will not change. You're still going to have a kid walking out in the middle of the street and some clown thinking he's got the right-of-way.
Well, something that'll be different is that the child will have 1/3 less of the road to cross than they would have before, and that is a really.
Exposure is down.
The
So
exposure
is that
is down
two-thirds
considerably.
reduction of possibility of death?
Apparently. I did talk to both the police chief and the fire chief to get their opinions on the bump outs. Fire chief said that he recognized the need for pedestrian safety. He too has a concern about the the radius. He said if the radius could be reduced a little bit, that would help with his fire trucks, although he said rest assured, they will always get to the scene. But for their big apparatus, that the right-hand turns, they can't do it until the traffic gets out of the way so they can get into the other side. Police chief said that he fully endorses the bump outs. He wishes they were all the way down Main Street because of the safety factors for pedestrians. That the calming effect of the traffic, he says that there's maybe studies don't completely coincide with the calming or the reduced of speed, but he feels like the other inconveniences that they create that safety of the kids crossing the street outweighs any of those inconveniences. If you have to wait for, to make a right-hand turn for a few more minutes to have some clearance, to have that perceived clearance, whether it's true or not. He says it's more important to have those kids safe.
I don't have a problem with the fundamental concept of what the bump outs are intended to accomplish. I don't have that. My concern is the inability to make a right-hand turn on any of those intersections with invading in the other lane or running over the curb. And I'm not going to run over the curb and pop a bead or bend a rim. That's just the way it is. And I understand you're saying you can do it, but Mike, I don't have a problem with the concept of what we're trying to do, and slow down traffic and make it safer. My problem is you can't make a right-hand turn.
Councilman Hamrick, do you have something to offer?
Yes, I did walk downtown today, and our main street is wider than some of our side streets. And it is a problem. You have to be a really precise driver to make it perfectly around the corner. You have to do almost a right angle turn when you're turning off of Main Street. And that to me is where the problem lies. And it seems to me that easing the radius of the curbs will go a long way towards towards the balance between vehicles and pedestrians. We know that we can make pedestrians safer by banning all vehicles. That doesn't solve any problems at all. We can widen the lanes, increase the speed limits. That's going to be counterproductive for our pedestrians. The point is that there's a spectrum here, that it's not all one or all the other. That there can be, if there's problems, there needs to be adjustments made. And I don't know if this question is coming to us as a council or not, but if it is, I have concerns about constructing something we know creates a problem. And I would have a problem supporting that. I don't know if that's where we are. I may not be totally up on exactly where in the process we are, or if even that's the question to us. But those are my concerns, is that if we know that there's a problem, we can balance that. We can balance the vehicle turning problem with a little bit less, if it's better than it is now, that's good. If we put in bump outs and it's better than it is now, that's a good thing. It doesn't mean it has to be perfect to meet some perfect engineering standard or some numeric value. I'm not sure exactly what the goal here is, but those are my concerns.
Okay, Mark, did you have something?
Well, we've kind of talked about it a little bit. And my question was going to be, has there been an increase in accidents, either vehicular or pedestrian, since the bump outs were put in? Or has it been a decrease or what? Because basically what we're concerned about is pedestrian safety and vehicular safety. I'm just curious, since we put these bump outs in, if there's been more head-ons or people can't see, there's been more pedestrians hit. And I don't know that either one of those are going to be answered in the affirmative.
What I've been told by PD is the majority of the accidents downtown are backing accidents.
Right. My brother-in-law did that.
I got a testimony.
So that was a question from one of the businesses on the corner of a concern because the kids don't always even use the sidewalks, and a concern with the pull-in parking, if cars are pulling out, if that might increase the chances of hitting kids.
That's a whole separate issue. The point of a Safe Routes to School project, one of the points of a Safe Routes to School project is to make the community more walkable and to encourage the children to walk. And that's actually one of the required components of the grant is encouraging them to walk more, because our kids are getting fat because mom and dad's dropping them off every day. So that's part of the components in the grant is how are we encouraging, well, because the mom says, well, I'm not going to let them walk because it's dangerous. So we're trying to make it safer. And we also know, we've talked about this before in this project specifically, there's linkages that are missing that we need to make for it to be a whole community project that works. That was a big part of the component downtown, was make downtown walkable, make it so that it's enjoyable to walk and people aren't afraid to cross the street.
Mm-hmm. I think Adam can validate this. I mean, the council seems to have a legitimate concern about the design. That being the case, if you wanted to redesign it, think that's your prerogative, but the project's probably not going to happen this year, and we may lose the funding permanently, but that's the risk if you're willing to accept. Otherwise, it proceeds as is currently designed. So that's your choice.
So
Yeah,
let's say,
But understand the unintended consequences. If you try to change the design, it will delay the project, and we might lose the funding. So as long
Yeah,
as we're
the-
cognizant of
well,
that.
and I think it's kind of unfortunate that, knowing that bump outs have been a controversial hot topic, that maybe council should have had this discussion before it was a do or die.
Well, but this project's been going on for 5 years. We
Yeah.
start these processes with grants and stuff. It takes forever. There's people
Yeah.
sitting up there that haven't
Yeah.
been sitting up there when this
Yeah.
process
This
started.
project was in our budget last year.
So,
This was deferred because CDOT couldn't get it squeezed in between the school breaks, so that's
Yeah.
why it's been deferred.
So even if we did something as simple as reduce the radiuses around the corners, which I think
No,
kids would
that-
still be safe.
the balance, well, first of all, you're talking about increasing rate, it's not decreasing it. But the balance that Mr. Hamrick's talking about, it's already been done. You increase the radius, you push the crosswalks back even further through in the vision triangle. So now
I'm not
the-
suggesting that. I'm suggesting that between the pedestrian lanes, that there is a radius of concrete.
No,
But that-
yes,
Yes,
I
there
understand
is a
what you're
radius of
asking for.
concrete.
I understand
Excuse
what you're
me,
asking for.
May I finish?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Between the pedestrian lanes, there's a radius of concrete. That needs to be flattened out to allow vehicles to make the turn without running over the curb. That's my point.
And my point is that brings the truck closer to the pedestrian, and I won't design it that way.
Is it, would
You're-
that
you're-
design be
you're-
better than what we have now?
No,
No.
I don't think so, no.
In your
Dina,
opinion,
I disagree with that. I don't believe that's true
Dean, I
at
see you
all.
nodding your head back there. Do you have a comment that you'd like to make?
Glad to chip in. Most of my career has been focused on urban design and creating walkable streets and on main streets in downtown. So I very much concur with everything that Adam is talking about. Creating that, I mean, if you just drive right now, if you get east of 7th, where the current bulb outs are, you notice a change in speed and a change in environment immediately. And it has to do with the distance between curb to curb. It has to do with the placement of the buildings and the setbacks of the buildings. The further the setbacks are, the buildings are set back, the faster traffic will go. The less street trees that you have in a tree lawn, the faster traffic will go. The wider curb to curb distance, the faster traffic will go. By virtue of having those bulb outs and minimizing that crossing distance and creating more friction, cars will slow down. And given the fact that there is a middle school open campus, which is quite frankly a new concept to me, that they're leaving campus in middle school, we want to create a safe environment for them to cross Main Street to get over to the luncheons and the retailers that we know that they're going to. Having those tight, and I will say, even if you don't have bulb outs, there are drivers that will still, when they're making a right-hand turn, they're going into that oncoming turn lane, whether there's a bulb out or not. That's just drivers needing to be a little bit more responsible with how they're driving. So I support this fully.
You know, I don't have a problem with the fact about the wide streets making it a good place to walk and all this other stuff. It does do that. I'm not saying nothing about that. But it hasn't decreased any traffic downtown. We're still busy with all the cars down there. The only thing that has changed is the fact that now when people go down Main Street, whether you're going east or west, everybody is watching out for that car that's backing up, okay? And that creates the hazard. And the other hazard is because the fact that people, just like the mayor, just like him and me, I can make a right-hand turn if a car's coming eastbound. Okay? But I'll tell you what, I'll guarantee you, if I want to make that same right-hand turn when that car's coming, I cannot do it safely. You just can't. And that's why everybody's going out there. Okay? So it's not the fact that these make good walkways. We're talking about, in my opinion, overall safety for everyone. The traffic, the people, and everybody. And that's why I think the bump outs create more of a hazard than they do a benefit.
So if the will of the council is not to do bump outs, what would be the plan B for getting kids safely across the street?
Well, rephrase that, because I don't think the council is necessarily opposed to the concept of a bump out. It's the radius. You can't make a right-hand turn. I don't care about the bump outs. I just want to be able to make a right-hand turn
So can they
without
be,
hitting the curb or going in the other lane. That's all I want to do.
is it possible to extend the lane just a few inches? Does that mess everything up?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Can you make
The
the
width?
lanes wider?
With,
But that's all I want. I want to be able to make a right-hand turn.
If
And I want to get the kids safely across the street.
Again,
We
it's back to unintended consequences. If we make it wider, then we are changing the angle of the diagonal parking.
Okay.
But technically, you could still have diagonal parking even if we didn't have bump outs. I mean, I'm not suggesting we do that. But,
Why do we have to have diagonal?
well, it creates more parking there, which is needed. The businesses there need more parking, the school needs more parking.
so again, we would suggest if you are troubled by the design, it sounds like many are, then I suggest don't proceed.
How do we get a answer on this? I mean, what do we need to do technically to?
Are we, my question is, are we more concerned about the safety of our children or,
Or having to wait a few extra minutes to make a right-hand turn.
yes? What is the concern?
And also, I mean, I think that the safety of the pedestrians is worth every minute if we're making somebody take a little longer. And also, if we don't approve this, then how much money are we talking about the state's giving us to do this?
$160,000
$150K?
out of $500,000 project. So we're still paying $340,000.
The majority of that is the pavement replacement, though.
But
Okay.
is,
So
I
if-
guess, the bottom line here, Mark, I believe, is the project's been approved and will proceed.
No, you can kill it.
Well,
It's a
And
city
give up the
street, you can
funding,
kill
and
it.
also another year of a problem in a school zone.
but
And
that's
I-
my
I'm-
point.
yeah.
Either, the project right now is approved, and without any action by council, the project will proceed.
True.
And the only way that council can change what is on the railroad tracks here really, is a vote not to proceed with the,
Yeah, you can kill it.
which I would not recommend either.
And then we lose the funding and it's out another year or so.
Exactly.
Are dollars more important than safety?
And what we're talking about, I'm sorry, this is not pointed, but what we're talking about is we're talking about the safety of the pedestrians moreover, rather than the patience of the people who are operating motor
No,
vehicles.
we're basically, if we deny this, we're talking about the money we're gonna lose and everything else. So I'll still say this, are the dollars more important than looking at total safety completely? And I don't think the dollars are worth it myself, okay?
Adam, is there a way that we could widen the streets a little bit at that corner?
It will start the process over, and I'm not sure that I would
So
feel
any
comfortable
change in the
redesigning
design?
it, so.
It's too late. Again, the worst case potentially is a delay of a year. I mean, it's been delayed 1 year. This is a project that's going to affect the road for 30, 40 years, so another year is not going to hurt us. But if we can accommodate and balance the interests that have been represented here, that's the way to go. Rather than trying to force a solution that half the town's not going to like when you complete it.
Well, I think we can look at the bump outs downtown as kind of a trial and error.
Were they
And-
successful?
I think some
it's
people
different
would say
measures,
yes,
yeah.
and some people would
Yeah,
say
yeah,
no.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a true
A
statement.
lot of people don't like roundabouts when they're
That's
first
exactly
installed, and then
correct.
after a couple of years, they love them. They want more of them.
And
Change is
yeah.
difficult. This is another
I don't
illustration of
disagree, but
change.
there's not more people that want these tight
Yeah.
turns.
We hear
That's
you.
my only point,
We would
Adam.
suggest punting,
turns.
see if you can get a redesign, see if we can still get the financial support a year from now, but there's no reason to rush into this if there's this kind of consternation.
They felt the brunt of it, so that's,
Adam, I would like to see maybe a little bit more compromise. I know that you want the utmost safety for the kids, but maybe there could be some small,
And the only thing I was trying to say earlier is that compromise has been built in.
The
That's
what?
already been done.
what was the compromise?
We have expanded all the radiuses and so forth and the stop bars as far as we can within the limits, without other consequences within the design.
So are you saying the design and radius is different on these than it is on the ones downtown?
No, it's very similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just-
I
was
mean,
just-
like, for example, could we sacrifice, just suggesting, 4 or 5 parking spots as we enter the intersection to give us an opportunity to widen? I just think exploring different options.
Well, again, I mean, then you're talking to business owners and telling them that they're gonna lose the 2 spaces they have.
Yeah, I don't
They
think
don't
you can
have the two
redesign it right now. You either have to give us permission to go back and come up with something that accommodates everyone's interests, and that's gonna be at least a year's delay, which is fine, or to push forward and upset a lot of people. There'll be winners and
Well-
losers versus trying to create a win-win.
Let's gauge the will of the council. And then the question I'm going to put forth is, do you want to move ahead as is with the project to 2018, or do you want to pause for a year and see if we can come up with the second design that might be a little bit more palatable for both pedestrians, safety of our kids, and our drivers? Frank, we'll start with you.
I just soon let this go another year. This is, like I say, I just don't see the safety factor overall. Overall, I'm talking about overall safety, okay? And we don't have that on the areas downtown right now on Main Street, and this is going to
So
just,
you,
in my
your
opinion,
vote
create
is
another.
to wait a year.
I would rather wait another year.
Dolly?
And then we can look at our budget and see where, if we lose money, where we can get that money back to get it into the next go-around if we need to.
Okay, Dolly?
I am for moving forward with this because I think the safety of pedestrians and students are of the utmost importance.
Mayor?
No, I really do think another type of curb could be designed. I just don't like what I have to go through every day.
So that's a wait?
2019?
But yes,
Okay.
yeah. And just from the people that talk to me, I can't tell you it's the majority that like those bump outs. I can't.
Yeah, I personally like the bump outs. They think they need to be adjusted. I think it is true this is a 25, 30-year solution that we're imposing on citizens. I understand the safety concerns, but we have to get it right. We do have to get it right, and I think that a pause would be called for.
Okay, 2019?
Do I need to
Councilman
vote?
Meisner?
I would request a pause. I would request a pause.
And Gil?
I've stated my opinion, but I think in the interest of council and what is going on, I think that we probably ought to pause and get it right, get it done, and just pause and see if there's some way that we can make the better end of all 5 sides.
All right, so I think the will of the council is to take
Yeah,
a
we'll work with
pause and see if
Adam
we
and
can-
CDOT and see, what additional design concepts we can bring back to the council and what the
That will still meet CDOT standards
Future
and
opportunity
all
for
the
construction and-
funding and stuff from
and
them. I
we
don't
may
know.
have to pay it all by ourselves, just so we're aware of that, but we'll try to see if we can get our existing funding partners to defer with us.
All right, sorry, Adam.
We don't take it personally.
Let's move
That's why
on
you
to
get
a
elected.
much more exciting topic that we all
Taxes.
really love to talk
Let's do
about.
taxes.
Man,
Well,
Adam, we still friends?
You have a copy of the ordinance, what we are proposing for amending the chapter 3.12.
Oh, yeah.
I think Harry's talking here.
All right.
And for the sake of time, I'll say this, our city attorney has spent enough time with the staff to come up with these definitions. And I'll turn over to her to discuss in detail. And if you have any questions, we have all the experts here to answer any questions.
So what you have in front of you is the culmination of 3 years. CML started this project with a sales tax committee, which Harry attended meetings starting in January of 2015. Your code actually requires him to participate in those. And at the end of 2016, I believe, they came out with a list of 106 standardized tax definitions. And the purpose of that was businesses were attempting to get the Colorado legislature to pass state law which would not allow home rule municipalities which self-collect to control what their sales tax definitions. So in order to avoid the state legislature telling us what we had to do, CML took the ball and worked with a lot of other home rule municipalities to come up with this list. We have spent a painstaking amount of time and detail going through 106 definitions and revising current definitions, adding definitions. I don't believe we deleted anything. We may have just revised it and inserted those, and that's part of what you have in front of you. Based upon that, we've made some clarifications in some other sections of the code at the same time. We've clarified, and just generally so you understand, if something's not listed in an exempt list for sales tax, it is taxable. But for purposes of clarification with the new definitions, we've added some items to the sales tax list, just so everybody understands what's being taxed.
When you say we, do you mean Canyon City?
Yeah, the state didn't do this, that part is, that's part just Canyon City. That section is just Canyon City making changes. The only thing that the CML did was the definitions, so. And we've also made some clarifications to the, what's exempt from sales tax based upon the addition, definitions as well. And I'm gonna get to the last component in a minute. When we go through these definitions, what we're looking at, besides does it work for Canyon City and our structure, the other thing we're looking at is to make sure that we're not taxing something that was previously untaxed, which would trigger Tabor and require an election. It's called a change in tax policy, when you change the wording of your tax code to result in taxing something you haven't taxed previously. So that's a lot of what we were doing, was going through and applying the definitions to our tax structure and making sure we didn't trigger that. So that's a really important point, and I'll say it again. This does not result in the taxation of any items which are not currently taxed under the code. So the last thing that staff is suggesting, and I think at least where I want to focus my comments on today, and we can go back and talk about whatever you'd like, is 3 different things. Staff is proposing that beginning in January of next year, 2019, that online filing become mandatory. Part of the reason that staff is suggesting this, and Harry can add to this if he'd like, or staff, is that the state is moving towards going online, and most municipalities are moving towards going online. So this will be probably eventually mandatory from the state as well. There is a fine associated with that that would not become, or a penalty, that would not become effective until January of next year, so that staff can take the time, educate people, teach them how to use the online system, which the city already has, work with them. And actually, it's easier, as my understanding, for taxpayers to use it because they simply plug in the numbers and it just calculates everything for them. So they don't have to fill out their form or anything like that. So that's one item. The other item is we are adding a component to the cancellation provision, where if someone they either don't report tax or they report 3 months of filing showing no tax due, meaning they're not doing any business, their license could be canceled after their business license could be, or the sales tax license could be canceled after notice and the right to a hearing. And that notice would come from Harry's department. And staff can talk a little bit about the no tax filings and that kind of thing that they kind of go through. There's a lot of staff time that's absorbed in that, and tracking down those filings when someone doesn't file, or dealing with paper filings where no tax is due and having to input all that information. That takes up a lot of staff time, so it's trying to streamline that a little better. And then the final thing is in the penalty section. The penalty for the late payment and the penalty or fraud are new. The other penalty provisions, there's 5 in there. The other 3 were B, D, and E are currently in your code. So the only 2 we're adding are the late payment and the fraud. So, and those are comparable to what's under state law for state sales tax filing, so. I think that's it. Is that everything you wanted me to cover?
That's correct.
I know it's a lot of information that you have in front of you, so.
Well, 3 years worth of information, it sounds like. What do you folks have to add?
I think the reason we are doing this online filing, I am envisioning that next step for the state would be the same, that it will be a mandatory. Because state is trying to get the centralized collection system. Eventually that is going to happen. So, and then we are giving about a year for educating the local vendors for online uses. We are spending too much time on manual returns because manual returns are sometimes calculated wrong, and we need to help individual taxpayer. We are spending too much time. In online system, they just put the gross sale and everything is calculated. So the accuracy there, and then directly input into the system. So we have much more updated information as we see it. Right now we are spending too much time in sending that returns back. About 30% of the returns are zero returns, means no business. And when you have a zero return, still we have to send them a reminder because we don't know whether they did the business or not. So it's spending too much time on that one. That's the reason we are saying that if you have no business more than 3 months, we are going to have some investigation with you and find out and whether it's worth to cancel that, particular license. The other reason the out-of-town taxpayers are taking the license because our fees is only $20. So for outside businesses, even though they expect no business here, they would love to have license with us by paying $20. That causes us more problem because we have to correspond every month whether they have a business or not. So these are the reason we are proposing some of the changes what we need to do. As far as the definition is concerned, I think we are just following what the Colorado Municipal League is suggesting us, and we are not adding any more, expecting any more revenue out of that, or we are not imposing any additional levy on the taxes. So it's simply, we are just trying to clarify what we have existing. And there are so many items in the current code that doesn't have clarification. It's a matter of interpretation. We are clarifying now that, what that, so in future taxpayer, this is easy for any taxpayer to understand whether these items is taxable or not. And that's the purpose.
All right, we'll start with questions on this end.
In this, I did mine online for the first time, and I'm no wizard at computers or anything else, and it actually said accepted the first time I did it. Good job. I was proud of myself, and I was proud of the program. It's really, and Ken and I spoke about it. He said, Mark, when you go to do it, if you have any problems, call me. So I purposely did it during the daytime hours, and it was seamless, it was easy, and boom, it was done. So like I said, if I can do it, I'm sure that probably people that have accountants can do it too.
And one other thing I'm trying to do is, currently the online charge card payment when the tax is due is a little bit more. So we are going to create an option to write e-checks online, and that will cost about $1.50. Now, right now, to mail the returns, it costing taxpayer 50 cents. But additional dollar will save them a lot more headache, by not to have inaccuracy in their returns, not corresponding with us back and forth, and it will cost them less than $1. And I'm trying to negotiate with the point and pay with the company we are using. Currently, we negotiated $1.50. It costing today is $2.95. I just negotiated that will cost only $1.50 for future. And I'm still working on it. Maybe I might, come up with less than $1 to, to write a checks online. And that will be a benefit for
Get 'em, Harry.
taxpayer and us.
Get them,
All
Harry.
right, any other points? Meisner?
So you're telling me that there's a $1.50 charge to pay electronically?
Correct.
But
It always amazes me when you've got a system that's turned electronic to benefit the government, and then the government turns around and charges you more to pay it.
Well, it benefits the customer.
It's the customer
considerably, too.
cost, it's not
No, it's your cost.
no, it's the charge company is a, point and pay, which we are using.
That's
Credit
your-
card company is charging us.
They're charging you, not the
Right.
customer. And you're passing that charge along to the customer,
Right.
along with the savings.
Now, if you prefer that you want to cover that cost
I've never liked
by
it.
the city, we can do that. That's up to you.
I've never liked it.
That's your option.
what if somebody sets up a checking account through this system? Does it still charge $1.50 per
Is your
transaction?
ACH in through a bank account?
No, ACH doesn't.
Okay, so if you set up your checking
You
account.
can do the ACH
But if
without
you use
charge.
your debit card or credit card, then it will charge the $1.50.
Yeah, right now we have debit card and credit card possibilities as well.
Uh-huh,
And
Ken, is your mic on?
There you go.
can you hear me now?
uh-huh,
And that's a scaled fee.
okay.
The folks that pay me like, let's say, $10-20 a month, it's cheaper actually than the electronic check. As Harry said, it's $2.95 right now for the electronic check. It's like $2 for those low volume folks using a debit card or credit card. When you start getting the larger volumes though, the credit card's a more expensive way of doing it. We don't have the true ACH that you're talking about
Okay.
available right now.
Okay. Is that something that we could move into the
That
future?
we need to work out with
Okay.
the credit card company.
Okay, Hamrick, Councilman Hamrick has a question.
Yes, my question is, under the whereas, it says the city has reviewed the standardized definitions. And as I understand it, that's both our attorneys and the finance department, is that correct? You work
Correct.
together both
Correct.
on that? Okay, and then I have one other question. I note that we're deleting section 3.12.320, which is the finance director's authorities. And we're not adding that back into the code somewhere. Does that create a problem for us somewhere, or are we going to have to restate those authorities somewhere else?
Which one is that?
What section is that?
So-
Section 9, page 3. Yeah, so it's
Section
page
3.12.320.
I think he has too much authority, so I'm trying to delete it.
Yeah, section 9 on page 3 of the memo.
Section 9?
Section.
Yeah.
I did. I did, I went back.
Section 320 is tax deficiencies from failure to file. On 312.320, that's tax deficiencies from failure to file.
Section 9?
In our code, is that what you're saying? 320?
Well,
Yes,
look at section 9 under 3.
Maybe it's 312.340. There's
340,
Yes.
312.340 in our code is titled penalties.
Oh,
Where are then what is the section for the finance director's authorities? I did not bring that with me, I should have. But I thought when I reviewed this, it looked to me like those authorities were being repealed, which is
It's,
312.32.
that's 230. You
220. Oh,
switched
I
the
thought it was
numbers around,
220.
230.
230. I
Yeah.
looked at 230
Right.
rather than 320.
Right.
Oh,
So is it good?
I'm good.
Okay.
I do get dyslexic.
Well, hey, you've been doing a lot of
Read
reading.
my
But
debut.
it's important that you could admit it.
Dolly, do you have any?
I don't.
Mayor?
Yes, I do.
We'll revisit that.
Went on, there was a couple, and I actually did read this. My wife was watching some silly TV program, so I didn't.
This is us? Is
This
that
was
what
way
she's
more
watching?
entertaining.
This is
Wow.
way more entertaining. Shirley, don't listen. Anyway, okay, when you go into Exhibit C, the ordinance, when you go down to 312.060 exemptions from sales tax, I may not have read this right, but one of the exemptions is all sales of cigarettes. We don't tax cigarettes currently?
But we tax food.
Really?
It's just cigarettes, though. Other tobacco products are
Okay.
taxed, it's just
It's
cigarettes.
just a cigarette.
Oh, that's curious. Okay.
Why is
Then,
Thank you,
Does
folks.
the state,
It's the state, it's
the
the
state
state?
taxes it?
oh, so they're getting their share, but we're not.
let's see.
Yeah, it's just
Just, okay,
Because you're preempted by the state, federal governments.
okay. So they're getting theirs, but we're not getting ours.
Well,
Well-
some of that comes back to us, doesn't it? This,
A portion of the state's
Yeah.
tax
From
on
the state.
cigarettes,
Okay.
yes.
And then lastly, I would call your attention to, in that same Exhibit C, number 12, it says that the exemption is also the sale of neat cattle. I want to tax that.
if they're neat, N-E-A-T.
If they're only, how do you judge a neat and an on-neat cattle? I think that means meat cattle. I mean, I'm just saying, I want the on-neat ones taxed as well. Just to prove I read this, Harry, I did, okay.
I'm very happy.
The cool cattle are still taxed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is that all that you had, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions from council?
I did want to say that if you do have really detailed questions about how some of the new definitions work, we're happy to sit down with you, work through it with you, or anything like that, so.
Be a cure for insomnia.
It works for me every time.
Put Harry to sleep.
All right, so we'll be
Because
seeing
Harry
this
is Harry.
February 19th will be on our
Meat
agenda.
counters and salespeople, just
Say
not
what?
the same people.
So this will be on February 19th agenda.
We doing
Are
a
we
thumbs
prepared
up
to
or
see
down?
that? Are you guys prepared for that?
What's that?
This will be on February 19th agenda. Is that,
Yeah.
are you guys okay with that? First reading, yep.
Something we wanted to ask the council, because you can ratify this action on February 19th, but to allow us to proceed with Kathy's advertisement of the open position created by Kathy Schumacher. We're officially waiting her letter, but I'm sure it'll be delivered by tomorrow. This will give her the opportunity to advertise, and we'd like theoretically to then have you ratify that action. Then February 21st, you have a vision meeting day. We thought that'd be a perfect opportunity for you to interview any candidates that you would choose to interview for this position, and that would put you on target to have that new member serving by the first meeting in March. Just trying to expedite their opportunities to
Is
serve
that-
immediately.
Only that's like less than 2 weeks of,
2 weeks to advertise, to advertise it. Yeah.
Everything would be ready to go, and then once that letter's received, then it'd ship to the newspaper, and then we'd
Yeah.
go from there, so
What-
it's kind of,
What meeting would we be,
You could interview theoretically on February the 21st.
what else is on that agenda?
The only thing we were going to discuss is the deer harvest.
Bambi.
Yes.
any other option would be
Yeah.
like a Monday, the 26th. It's
Yeah,
what-
we're just trying to avoid a special meeting of the council. I
Another
mean,
night, yeah.
we know that.
Whatever, what?
That, you've got tons of meetings, and we thought if we could create a double header, that would be a win-win. But if that's not to your likings, then we can create a special meeting.
Baseball's not here yet.
how long do you usually have to get
gonna take-
letters typically? I thought it was more like a month.
Typically 3 to 4 weeks.
I'm okay if we wait to see candidates till March 5th, but.
We were just,
I would
I think
prefer,
they.
I would actually prefer that as well, as I will not be here the 21st.
Okay.
What'd you, what did you
I
say,
won't-
Ashley?
March 5th.
To interview?
For the interviews?
So give
The
ourselves.
mayor's not going to be here?
I won't, I'm here for the 21st.
He doesn't
won't be
vote
here
anyway,
the
so.
21st.
Bye.
Or but he would be here on March
Touche.
5th.
How's that?
And I feel like we need a little bit more time to
That's fine.
garner letters.
Just wanted to give you the option.
That would just be two meetings that you would just have be missing.
We've done it before with longer.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get to vote occasionally, don't I?
Yeah, when that
That's what we're
happens.
trying to avoid.
So watch yourself.
That's what we're trying to avoid.
Oh.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, well, let's go ahead and adjourn.
Thanks.